The studio of The View was alive with a buzzing intensity. Brighter and sharper than usual, the overhead lights gleamed off the polished table. The cameras zoomed in with precision, and the audience stirred with a restless excitement. Whispering in hushed tones as the show began, there was a strange tension in the air, as though everyone sensed that this episode would be remembered long after the credits rolled. At the center of it all sat Meghan Markle. She carried herself with practiced composure, shoulders straight, chin slightly lifted, her tailored cream dress flowing elegantly around her. A soft, measured smile played on her lips, one that suggested calm but also hinted at the expectation that this was her moment. Her platform, she tapped her fingers lightly against her water glass, exhaling slowly as the applause signaled her introduction. "Let's welcome Meghan Markle to The View," Whoopi Goldberg announced warmly, her tone steady, though even she seemed to sense the crackling tension. The audience responded with polite claps, some enthusiastic, others cautious, unsure of what to expect. Meghan leaned forward slightly, her voice clear and tinged with conviction as she began to speak. "It's not easy, you know, to break away from an institution that has silenced women for centuries. I had no choice but to fight for my freedom, for my family, and for my voice." Her words hung in the air like smoke drifting over the audience. Some nodded in agreement, moved by her tone of resilience. Others shifted uneasily in their seats, exchanging side glances, uncertain if they fully believed what they were hearing. The co-host listened attentively, but the energy on the set was far from settled. Then, without warning, the camera panned wide, revealing an unexpected figure seated at the far end of the table. The collective gasp from the audience was instantaneous. Queen Camilla. She sat upright, composed, her posture regal, her expression unreadable but cool, like marble carved to withstand storms. Meghan's smile faltered just slightly, the corner of her mouth tightening before she forced it back into place. "Well," she said carefully, her voice dipping into surprise, "this is unexpected." Camilla folded her hands neatly on the table, her movements deliberate, controlled. When she finally spoke, her voice was low, steady, and piercing enough to silence the room. "What is truly unexpected, Meghan, is hearing you speak of silence when you have done nothing but make the world listen to you." The studio froze. Even the cameras seemed to hesitate, lingering on both women as the air grew thick, heavy, and charged with the promise of confrontation. The silence that followed Queen Camilla's words was suffocating. Cameras zoomed in to capture every flicker of emotion, the bright studio lights reflecting off the polished table like shards of glass. The audience leaned forward in their seats, caught between fascination and unease, sensing that what was unfolding was no ordinary television segment but a clash of wills that belonged in history books. Meghan tilted her head ever so slightly, her practiced poise faltering under the weight of Camilla's stare. She drew in a measured breath, her fingers tightening on the stem of her glass before she spoke. "I only tell my truth," she said, her voice carrying a smooth rhythm, though a faint tremor betrayed her. "What I endured is real, and I refuse to be dismissed." Her words rang out, strong yet tinged with vulnerability. The audience stirred, some clapping softly in support, others whispering uneasily, waiting for Camilla's repull. Camilla, however, didn't flinch. She leaned forward just enough for the light to sharpen the angles of her face. Her tone was deliberate, each word delivered with precision, slicing through Meghan's statement like a blade. "Your truth, Meghan, has become a performance. You've painted yourself as a victim, while tearing down the very family that welcomed you. And now, you sit here playing martyr before an audience that deserves the whole picture." The reaction was explosive. Half the audience broke into applause, their clapping loud and forceful, while the other half booed, their disapproval filling the studio with a cacophony of divided opinion. The energy surged like a storm, the tension nearly unbearable. Meghan's jaw tightened. She picked up her water glass, took a quick sip, and set it down with more force than intended. Her knuckles whitened as she pressed her palms against the table. "I left because I had to protect my family," she shot back, her voice louder now, the carefully controlled tone breaking into raw emotion. "Harry and I endured cruelty behind palace walls that none of you could ever understand." Gasps rippled through the audience. Some shouted encouragement, others shook their heads. Camilla's eyes narrowed slightly, her tone dropping colder, firmer. "And yet here you are, endlessly repeating the same grievances for cameras, for money, for applause. Protection or profit?" The words hung like thunder. The studio gasped again, the sharp intake of hundreds of breaths echoing louder than applause. Whoopi raised her hand, trying to interject, but her voice was lost in the roar of divided voices. The clash was no longer a conversation. It was a battle, and neither woman seemed ready to retreat. The studio was now a powder keg ready to explode. Every camera angle locked in close, capturing every flicker of expression, every twitch of a hand. The audience had stopped merely watching. They were leaning forward in their seats, some gripping the armrests, others holding their phones high to record history as it unfolded live. Meghan's composure, so carefully maintained at the start, had begun to crack under the relentless pressure. Her voice shook, not only with anger but with something deeper: desperation, frustration, exhaustion. "You have no idea what I've lived through," she burst out, her tone sharp, her chest rising and falling quickly, to be silenced, scrutinized, and broken down by an institution that only cared about appearances. Camilla didn't let her finish. She cut in with a force that commanded the room, her voice sharp, cold, and unyielding. "And yet, Meghan, here you are. Not silenced, not broken. You wanted the stage, and you've taken it at every opportunity." The words landed like a gavel striking wood. The audience erupted into thunderous applause, the clapping so fierce it drowned out the hum of the microphones. Cheers broke out, though some booed in protest, their voices nearly lost in the roar. Meghan blinked rapidly, her eyes glassy as the weight of the moment bore down on her. Her lips parted as if to respond, but no words came. The cameras caught every flicker, the tension in her jaw, the tremble of her hands. At the table, Sonny Hostin leaned forward, whispering into her mic with awe, "This is history happening live," her words barely audible beneath the audience's frenzy. Meghan finally straightened, forcing her shoulders back, her voice rising again as if summoning her last reserves of strength. "I will never apologize for speaking my truth." The declaration rang out defiantly, echoing across the studio. Camilla, calm and unshaken, allowed a pause before delivering her reply with icy finality. "And I will never apologize for exposing it." The studio went wild. Applause thundered. Some audience members stood clapping furiously, while others shook their heads in disbelief. The co-hosts scrambled, trying to regain control, but the set had become a battlefield. The camera lingered on Meghan's face, flushed, tight, her composure fractured, then cut to Camilla, regal and immovable, a faint victorious smile on her lips. As the segment ended, Meghan pushed back her chair and stormed off stage, her heels clicking sharply against the floor. Camilla remained seated, composed, a picture of quiet triumph. As the audience roared around her, the broadcast cut to black.